over to you, Joel, for your case study.
Amazing. Cheers, Henry. Cool. So I'm just going to walk you through the process and problem I've been working through over the last 8 weeks with Husthwaite habits. So the original problem statement that I had was that we believe that aspiring first-time buyers in London are currently frustrated by sticking to long-term saving goals. This was a problem that I discovered kind of through initially talking with friends and family in the ideation phase. Friends around that age were wanting to kind of get on the property ladder, but hearing about how people are struggling and how they don't see it as being realistic kind of really showed an acuteness of the problem. As well as that, house prices in London being the highest ever, with wages not necessarily matching that, kind of emphasized the acuteness of the problem. So I really wanted to figure out a way to kind of bridge that gap, alleviate the pain, and help people to get to the initial assumed desired situation of confidence that they will achieve their goal of buying a home. So the kind of first phase of that was trying to understand the kind of problem market fit. So my initial kind of aim of doing this was by validating that the struggling to commit to a long-term saving goal is a real acute problem for young professionals in London. So I built out that assumption of the niche being young professionals in London and what their motivations and needs were. And to basically validate this, I needed to actually talk with these people to learn more about what their actual kind of needs were, and to validate that this was an actual problem that they were facing. So the kind of key results of this were I conducted 8 user interviews with young professionals in London, and this kind of confirmed the initial acuteness of the problem, and it also kind of showed a wider breadth and depth of the problem, which I was going to be tackling later on. And I also kind of initially validated customer channels of how I reached out to people. So this was through kind of more unorthodox channels like Instagram and WhatsApp, which I found to be the most effective. And this also showed that the problem was not exclusive to the initial targeted niche, and that was a kind of more widely received problem. So to kind of conduct those 8 calls, what I did was basically I conducted the outreach campaign via Instagram and WhatsApp. I reached out to the network of people that had either recently bought a house or were saving to buy a house. During this kind of initial outreach, I basically pivoted on how I was communicating to them to try to reach out to them. I realized I was potentially alienating people by talking about like this big problem of saving for a house, when actually for some people they saw that as so far away that they didn't even feel it applied to them. But really these were the people I wanted to talk to, so I had to kind of pivot on that to make sure I was kind of including everyone in that initial communication. So what I did was basically conduct 8 kind of calls with these people to basically discover more into their problems and needs in a kind of interview style format. As you can see on the mirror board here, I basically documented them in a kind of clear and transparent way so other people can kind of pick up and see what was going on as well. I basically documented and affinity sorted the key findings into group frustrations, as you can see on the right, to kind of really understand what the key frustrations people were receiving. Some of those being, people found it hard to stay disciplined in their saving habits, saving for what feels like an intangible goal and not seeing results for years. So that kind of validated the initial problem, that it was one worth solving and looking into, and needed to then kind of look into how we can potentially provide an offer for this. So yeah, the initial kind of to validate this for the offer market fit was to basically create a minimum viable offer. So the idea of this was to validate the offer, not the solution, without a single line of code, whilst also kind of validating the product strategy to be able to ensure that what we were looking to offer really resonated with people before we kind of built out a solution. So this was done in quite a lean way to be able to kind of ensure that we were testing the right thing before kind of investing too much after that. We then flipped these kind of key frustrations into opportunities, reviewed these opportunities and kind of focused on the most compelling ones to make that the kind of minimum viable offer that was displayed to our niche. The key results from this was basically reached out to 68 unique visitors, 17 signed up. So this was roughly a 25% conversion, utilizing the channels that I mentioned earlier, so Instagram and WhatsApp. I also kind of followed a few Facebook money groups, which kind of further validated the idea of people really struggling with how to save and how to kind of get towards money confidence. And the final the initial offer that we landed on was we help people struggling to stick to long-term saving goals achieve independence by building simple saving habits. When we kind of landed on the idea of simple saving habits, this was not necessarily an area that I knew a lot about. So initially, I kind of needed to inform myself on that to be able to kind of best provide a suitable offer for the niche. So some ways that I did that, I kind of read briefly on Blinkist, Hooked by Nir Eyal, and the Atomic Habits book. So this was kind of starting to move from the problem space and how this offer to how this offer will work. So building an understanding of how to build habits and then how to kind of utilize that in an offer for our niche. From this, I kind of derived the idea of the hook model. So kind of understood that there was a need for engagement in whatever kind of offer that I was going to be providing, and tried to kind of incorporate this into the future prototype. This also, from the kind of reaching out to the initial niche through the MVO, kind of validated our product vision of money confidence through building simple saving habits. From here, the next challenge was basically to know how this offer would sit in the money space market. Kind of knew that the money space was a crowded market, and that the key to be able to do this and to kind of stand out was to solve the internal problems of these people through a habit building product instead of just kind of creating another money product that is already out there. So the ways that we I used to kind of find out how to stand out was something called a blue ocean strategy, which is basically a tool to understand how we need to differentiate in an already crowded market. What that was showing was basically there wasn't a lot of initial room to carve out, but I identified that a lot of products were focusing on what to do with your savings when you have them, but not necessarily focusing on the step before that, so how to learn to save. So I identified that basically a habit building product focusing on saving tracking has the opportunity and isn't necessarily being focused on currently. Yet whether that was actually going to be a viable product was something that I still needed to validate. Also being able to kind of iterate on the landing page and make sure that I was communicating with our customers correctly or as best as can. Use something called a product story canvas, which was basically to help communicate effectively to the target niche, speaking on desires, motivations, and frustrations. So now kind of having an understanding of the problem and the offer, kind of moving more towards what potentially the solution would be. So the objective of this was to test the app to build a simple saving habit and validate that it is valuable for a target customer as well as viable as a business model. So basically, the key results from this was iterating on the landing page for the MVO. And I also conducted a lean canvas, which was essentially a one-page business plan to map out how this was going to be viable as a product. Ideated also for solutions and prioritized them strategically as a roadmap, and then started also planning the solution, identifying the key steps in the customer journey that we needed to focus on to ensure that the user was experiencing real value as early as possible. Use tools such as a customer journey map, which is basically identifying core steps in the customer experience, and also then wireframe them to kind of map them out into the next stage towards kind of building out a working solution. So this was quite an exciting kind of stage to see things start to take life. So yeah, as you can see here, prioritize solutions based on kind of an impact and effort matrix, and kind of rapidly ideated to be able to make sure that we weren't just coming up with the first solution that we thought of, but also kind of considering everything as a whole. As you can see here as well, we have the customer journey map. So the idea of this was to ensure that the core value was for the niche to engage with the savings goal tracker to build simple saving habits. This highlighted the need to kind of create investment in setting up a savings goal, as well as the need to re-engage with the app as often as possible. So one of the key aims here was to keep repeatable engagement. The wireframes here kind of mapped out that customer journey to the next stage, focusing on creating value through the goal savings tracker. And also basically the way that I decided to kind of build those habits was through money journaling. So my idea of this was, well, the concept of this was to have a way to have constant engagement, to be able to reflect on your money spending and saving habits. This would also kind of increase time spent on the app and in theory, return value to the user. So the next step of this was trying to understand, did this resonate with our niche? So the way that I did this was to reach out to the signups from the MBO to conduct usability sessions. Had 15 respondents, 6 converted into actual sessions. Basically ran through a no-code prototype to validate that the core value was building simple saving habits, and then got them to fill out a survey at the end before the call ended, which was something kind of awkwardly waiting there for a few minutes for them to finish. The result of that kind of initial survey was that of the 6 respondents, 3 were somewhat disappointed, 3 were not disappointed. I found that the most useful aspect of the feedback was from the actual sessions, which gave me confidence I was onto something and basically gave me really concrete kind of steps for the next iteration. So I had a little screen recording here, so I'm just going to talk through it. So basically what I did was find a way for people to invest in saving, allow them to continue to stay connected with the goal throughout the process. I initially tried to kind of gamify it in the simplest way, but I kind of pivoted away from that towards the more simpler concept of just journaling. The idea of money journaling is healthy habits. From these kind of usability sessions, I think the key learnings from this was basically I needed to improve the prototype to really be able to create more value for the customer, which I kind of also hypothesized beforehand. So from the survey and from the usability sessions, some of the key learnings were basically people appreciated the reflections, the ability to kind of journal and to kind of they found that it would help them build better habits, and they enjoyed kind of being able to reflect on it. They enjoyed documenting their goals, and they found that it was simple to use. So this kind of gave me confidence in iterating this to the next step. Validates a lot of my previous assumptions and my hypothesis, and it also kind of validated that core value of helping to stick to long-term goals by building simple saving habits. This was done in a very basic version, so it kind of also gave me clear next steps to advance the experience for the customer. Things to improve: the initial validation of a kind of long-term view to incorporate potentially open banking to integrate with savings account was kind of slightly validated. The want to have notifications and be able to view progress was reaffirmed. I kind of initially wanted to have that on the prototype, but it was taking too long to figure it out. So I basically wanted to get something in front of people ASAP instead of kind of spending more time on something that was unvalidated at that time. So the key thing here was, key learning is its first iteration, and I now have concrete next steps to validate further. So the kind of short-term idea of this was to turn that initial feedback into next steps. So I used this feedback from the survey, focusing on the things that people valued and enjoyed, as well as areas to improve on. Basically prioritize these in a simple kind of effort impact matrix. And this gave me a short-term view of wanting to improve the engagement and stickiness through notifications, as well as improving the experience through the actual tracking saving progress, while still having that kind of long-term goal of potentially an idea of kind of incorporating savings accounts through open banking. This also kind of informed the overall long-term strategic roadmap. Next steps are to basically iterate on the existing prototype to further revalidate and improve the kind of product market fit. From there, further investment would be needed to enhance a gamified experience for habit learning, which I think would be a next step that I'd be able to achieve through a prototype. And then, as I said, there's initial validation on the way to be able to, there's initial validation for the want to be able to view savings from accounts, which points in the direction of kind of leveraging open banking, but obviously is a much bigger investment down the line. So this is the kind of process that I follow from start to finish, and also one that I'd want to kind of carry over into future roles. So the importance of understanding the problem, being able to ideate it, using that ideation session to basically validate an offer before kind of investing more time, resources, and people into it, being able to prototype and learn more from that before only then kind of investing further. Some of the kind of principles that I've learned from this and kind of want to carry on further as well is customer value and kind of user always being number one. So being user-centric, always asking why, keeping user always involved in the conversation, learning fast and often, so learning just enough to validate assumptions and increase confidence, having constant feedback loops, keeping that learning continuing running throughout, not just at the beginning, and kind of testing at every stage. Bringing everyone along. So by that, I mean the team that you're working with, the stakeholders in the process, in the research, and kind of making things clear and transparent, and problem over processes. So focusing on ensuring that you're tackling the right thing is the priority, and not being distracted or restricted by processes for the sake of processes.
Awesome. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, and that's me.
I just sit quietly when everyone reads it. Good. Yeah, really nice presentation. Cool to see the prototype as well. I haven't seen that before. Good. So I'll go through some sort of key points from the presentation, then we can talk about just some areas to focus on, I think, in future.
Yeah.
So I think your storytelling was really good. Straight from the beginning, the problem was clear. You gave some nice context as well on where the problem came from. That always adds color, right? It helps you remember and relate to the story straight from the beginning. So that's really good, really well done. You bridged well. So what I mean by that is you went from the problem side into the objectives and key results. It made sense. What you're talking about, here was the problem. So we started with the first objective to understand, is this a real problem? And specifically with these key results, then you talked through the interviews, and when you showed the board of the user interview results, again, you talked through that, gave some examples. So it was really clear. You did the same thing with the MBO and the Blue Ocean, right? Just quite clear what it is, why are you talking about it, and then some learnings around it. I thought it was good as well, the way you talked about the pivot you had, the realizations you had about alienating people. And similarly with the Blue Ocean, realizations about, we did the Blue Ocean, lack of differentiation, and then that pushed you to actually come up with this quite unique insight, different way of looking at it. What you're doing there is, firstly, it's interesting and engaging, but secondly, you're also implicitly selling the value of product discovery.
Yeah.
Because you're showing that there was value from doing it, right? The realization that they're not doing something that wouldn't have worked. So that's important to keep doing. I think one thing, you did a good job of explaining concepts, but don't underestimate how little people will know about something. So what you talked about, we take the customer from current to desired outcome. Mm-hmm. That as a concept is completely alien, even to most product people.
Okay.
Be very, you can't put everything in, obviously, but just try and explain, what that actually means, why it's important.
Like explain context always. If you're using a word that isn't, you're not confident that it's commonly used, just give a bit of background. Okay.
Yeah. And simple English, don't use, and at times even avoid using clever language. So, in this context, it's better to say user interview than discovery call, because that's what people understand, right? People get that as a concept.
Yeah.
Good. I liked your one element I thought you could improve from with the storytelling is a bit where you mentioned that the books you'd read. I felt you missed an opportunity to tell a good story about, to hammer home what it's like for this person. So the frustration they're going through, the bad habits they've built up. You could put some data in there, talk about your persona a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
you did it obviously at the beginning, but I think when you validate it, you come in with, again, a nice story, just because that's the image they're going to take away, is who is
painting the story of the problem, but also the person is like experiencing it, right?
Yeah, it just adds quite. So you're trying to pull in data, references with the books, and then that sort of qualitative story just emerge from the discovery calls. Small thing, but again, I'm always pushing you with this stuff. What else have we got? One thing I wasn't, in terms of bridging, I thought was weak. I think this is just lack of practice with the presentation, is you click slide and then it's the customer journey map. You just said, as you can see here, we have the customer journey map. And I was thinking, like, I'd have no idea what the hell that is if you showed it to me. You talked through it after very well, but that's where, lack bridging. It's like, what you want to do is when you show that slide, it's like, so having, set the objective that we wanted to validate, build out a solution, we started mapping out a customer journey. We use the customer journey map. This helps us to do ... for example. So always bridging every single slide.
Yeah.
So that's point one. I think storytelling was good. A couple of small things, but generally very good. Second thing I want you to focus on, it's a small thing, but I think I just, I latched onto it. You do this thing where, and I think it undermines your authority, where you'll say something, you go, so we did the customer journey map, and then we did this. You go up at the end of the sentence.
As in like audit, like decibel.
The way you speak it. Yeah. So you go, so we looked at the customer journey map, and then we did this.
Okay.
And it undermines, it's a really small thing, but I really felt it undermined your authority, because it felt like you're looking for
closing or the next, like, together.
Confirmation, actually. Okay. In conversation, we like a response in some way. Felt like you were looking for, am I doing the right thing? Am I talking about the right thing?
That's interesting. I don't know I'm doing that, but that's.
No, watch.
I think I would
replay.
Yeah, I think I would think the same way if someone else did it. So that's interesting.
Yeah, so because you're trying to get some mirrored reaction from me, and you're a product leader, right? Leaders don't do that. You're not arrogant and blind, but when you're saying something, you're confident in what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Use full stops, be firm,
be confident, taking pauses
as well.
Yeah.
It's fine to use that. If you're talking about, talking through your thought process or being reflective, you can change tone, and that's again a tool to use, right? Depending on what we're talking about, we want to change the tone. So if there's a discovery, make it sound exciting, because you're selling an opportunity, particularly on Monday with an interview. I want to really sell that, be excited about it. Other times you could show disappointment when something didn't work out, but then get excited again because you learned this other cool thing. We came up with this unique insight. So really don't underestimate the importance of that practice and tone and acting when you're presenting. Good. And third and final thing, that's it in terms of presentation. And then I think there's two general points to take forward with, the presentation was great, but I think, it was great having you over the 8 weeks. I think you bring a good energy to any of the groups you've been in. I've noticed you're quite supportive with other people, right? Always, contribute on Slack, these kind of thing. That, is good as a person, but that's also a good, important thing as a leader. So that you've got that foundation down for leadership. I'm not worried about you developing into really effective product leader. Mm-hmm. And then the second thing, that your strategic and analytical thinking has been very good from what I've seen, in terms of how you've approached this problem and it's a difficult market, but you did come with some unique insights. I noticed some of the contributions you gave to other people's ideas were very strong. So you've got a good brain there, and you just need to keep developing that. And I thought it was a shame in this case to not have done better, I think, with the prototype. But as you said, this is the kind of idea that has to be 10 times better than what's already out there. And like the viable is a very complex, the minimal viable product has to be pretty high level and require a lot of work. So that's fine. I got the impression you understood that.
Yeah, I think I got a bit frustrated by that.
That's fine. It's as long as you're aware of it, and that you would need to like knock this out the park at some point to get out of a busy market, then that's fine. You know, you talked about it in the presentation as well, so I thought that was great. So I think just keep working on that strategic side of things. You know, don't settle. If something is not good enough, push your thinking, like make it better, put the work in with ideation, you know, get a workshop together. 10 for 10 is easy to do. You can even run that with your customers.
Yeah.
You know, doing discovery calls, all of these things, just continuously trying to push your thinking, I think is really important. But again, you've got a good foundation. That's just the next step for you. Yeah, so that's it. You know, I think just keep doing what you're doing in terms of the sort of support and leadership aspect of things. That includes your storytelling is good. But again, always giving nice examples and whatever you can do to bring color to an example. And then keep focusing on the strategic stuff. And you've got, I mean, now you've got all the bases covered. It's just about, you know, keep working on leadership, keep working on that strategic thinking, and
applying it and practicing it.
Off to the races with this new job and practice. Yeah, definitely. Good. Any sort of final thoughts, or how do you felt it went?
The presentation or the whole course?
Everything.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really glad I did it. Like, I feel like in my product journey so far, the thing I was missing were, like, you know, these kinds of frameworks and the structure. And I feel like the way that we learned them, but also applied them and practiced them all in one, like that's also just how I learn best. So that's something that I felt like has really cemented a lot of knowledge, but also given confidence in actually doing it. So yeah, that's been like a huge benefit and a huge positive. Also, just really enjoyed the kind of cohort experience of doing it with people. You know, like the kind of idea that product management is quite lonely. Like, it was really nice to kind of join a network, but also a community of people throughout the 8 weeks, but then also having access to, like, you know, the Prod MBA alumni after. Yeah, really positive experience. I kind of felt like I dropped off a bit at the end, as in, like, I feel like I started strong, like halfway, and then kind of dipped a bit.
Oh, it's natural. It's natural because it goes on 30 weeks, which is a long time. I think as you start sort of really zeroing in on your solution, then you start focusing on it. Yeah, which certainly makes sense. Don't worry, everybody has that problem.
Yeah, that kind of, I was a bit disappointed in myself in that, but also, yeah, it is what it is.
Well, no, I mean, honestly, the outcome's good. It's a good learning to know that, you know, even the minimal viable is still has to be a step up. That's good learning to have, actually. So yeah, no, I think it's a good outcome.
Yeah, but also just really appreciative of like your support and you know, impressed of how you've like made this course. You know what I mean? Like, with all the content and just the way it's been set up, and, you know, the way you've led it has been really impressive as well. So that's also been a bit inspiring, which has been nice. And also, obviously, you know, you've been helping out on job stuff, which I've been really appreciative of. So that's been, you know, just the whole experience has been very positive.
No, it's nice to hear. Well, look, Joel, yeah, good luck on Monday. Let me know how it goes as well.
Yeah, we'll do. Yeah, that's if that converts, you know, that's such a beautiful ending to this year.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, let me know how it goes, and then hopefully, are you coming to the meetup next week?
The Christmas party.
Yeah. Christmas party. Okay, nice, awesome. Well, look, I hopefully see you there. Hopefully, you got good news as well from the interview by then.
Yeah, hopefully. All right.
Cheers. Well, look, I'll see you next week then.
Bye.
Bye.